Hi, I'm Richie Mackay.
And I'm David Bolt, and you are listening to the Wrong Bias podcast.
And on show 48, we are joined by England Women's International Annalisa Dunham to look back on the Women's Home International Series at Abbeyview. Bolty gives his return to the international scene a right good going over. We wave ta-ra to an old friend. And there's a bit of this and a bit of that with a little bit more waffle. Thanks as ever to XX20 for their kind sponsorship of the podcast competitions. We hope you enjoy the show and thanks as ever for your support. Right, mate, here we are again. Show number 48 of the old podcast. And you're freshly back from over the borders, mate, up at Abbeyview for your international series.
I am.
It must have been a nice experience to get back into the international scene, mate.
It was nice. It was bittersweet, not from the result. I actually, it would be lovely for England to win it for the 8th time and all well and good. But I always think, it's not always a bad thing for another country to obviously win that trophy. It was starting to get obviously a little bit repetitive. 7 England wins off the bounce, and full credit to Scotland. They were outstanding on the day. So yeah, it was nice to be back. It was nice to mix with the lads again. Obviously a lot of friends and long-term players who I've played with for a lot of years. It was all going very swimmingly, mate, until the Scotland game.
From the little clips of the live phone clips, the atmosphere looked to be great.
It was. I mean, the first 2 days played, I don't know what the crowd was like for the Scotland games, but our games against Wales on the first day and then Ireland on the second day, they were both the morning games. And it was, there was people in there, but obviously nowhere near was for the final day. I mean, obviously I was put in at lead, which raised a few eyebrows, but really happy. Played really well against Wales. Had a little bit of a struggle playing the wrong hand against Ireland in the second game, and their lead just pezzled me for the first 5 ends. I wasn't playing bad balls, but I just wasn't as tight as what he was. My old mate, Mr. Stoff, while I was up there, who's at Abbeyview, when I was walking out the toilet, literally hoofed us in the knackers and says, "What on earth are you playing that hand for?" That's as polite as I'm going to say it. And I switched on and started playing the same hand as the other guy and put some ends together, and we went from a deficit and managed to come back and win by 4, I think, in that game. So generally, I was really happy and with the 2 games and thought, well, at least I've held my own in a position that I haven't played for many years. And then felt great for the Scotland game. It was really, the adrenaline was going, but I wasn't feeling like overawed or nervous or anything, being back in that environment for a long time. And I was absolute shite. And there's you'll have to get your bleed one in, but
really, your poor game is probably better game than what my good game is. I know you're talking at international level.
I'll be honest with you, Richie. I would say it's the worst performance I've ever put in an England shirt. A couple of people had mentioned, and chatting to Stoffy after the game, it's not really a consolation, but a couple of people forward even got up there, so I hope you didn't get ring 4. If I went high, I stuck. If I nipped at a ball, I tended to cut underneath. Found myself completely in no man's land, where I was like here, there, everywhere. Not massively bad balls, but just not as close as it was one of them rinks where if you dominated, it was a nightmare to get out of trouble on. Neil played really well, but he had to carry me. And if I'd played as well as I had in the previous 2 games, then I think it would have been a totally different outcome, because it was just I left Louis and Jamie, in my opinion, I left them in a bad position on most ends, and to the point of then some balls which are just a couple of yards. Like, I was drawn 2 yards through, and I'm like, I just lost all.
You say you left the back end in a poor position, but still international ballers coming behind you, mate. It's I
know, but yourself that I've always said people sometimes disregard the front end and think it's all about the stars that you've got at the back. But as I've said on loads of occasions as well, skipping as much as what I do, you're only as good as what you've got going ahead of you. It's lovely as a skip to be able to go and roll a ball away for a 5 or a 6 because you got loads of balls in there, or cover the back. We were just chasing all the way through the game. I think we only lost by 10 in the end, which is credit to the rest. And I had a few ends where I sort of did all right. Generally, I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted coming away from there, because for the experience I've got now, and I've always said sometimes you've got to just scrap your way through, but the harder I tried, the worse I got. And it was a bit of a nightmare place to be in, to be honest with you. It was
horrible. I suppose the atmosphere with the Scots on the roll as well.
I got away with that in a lot of respects, because we were right in the middle of the green, so we weren't surrounded by the stand either side of the end ring. The glass fronted part of the bar was right in front of our rinks. If I'd been playing the way I did in front of Scottish supporters, it would have been even worse, because they would have torn us a new backside, to be fair. The team person of me coming out, it's like you walk away and you just feel that's not the standard that I've been picked to be playing in there. Yes, great. I played well against Wales and Ireland, but I've just ended up on a rink in the big game, so to speak, to win the overall, and let myself down. And as far as I'm concerned, let me rink down. And
I wasn't going that far, mate. It's just one of them things, man. Just one of them.
I know it happens, but just from a personal point of view, it was gutting. It was gutting to be driving back. And funny enough, I ended up bringing Johnny Forster back as well, and he'll have been absolutely gutted because he had to drop out the last game because he's back out. First ever series, and that was the game that you wanted to be playing in. One guy I've got to mention is who came in at very, very short notice, Stewie Irwin. Looked as if he had an absolute storming game, which was great. Yeah. I'm over the moon for him, because great for him to get that opportunity. And, another guy I'll mention, Joe Dawson, he was there and as the other reserve, and unfortunately didn't get his chance, but was there supporting the team all the way through as well. So no, it was great to be a part of it again. I really bit disheartened.
Always another year, man. Always another year. Put a line under it, mate. Put a line under that, man. But like I say, Stewie Irwin, when I seen him making his debut against Scotland, of all games, in a decider, and getting Hoyd in his lead, was he?
He was in at lead, straight in the lead.
And I'm sorry to say, by God, it goes in 3, Stewie, son. I hope you enjoy it.
I mean, to be fair, I think he got away with any barracking from the crowd, because he was playing with his boxing gear on, so he was all right.
I wonder, in the red corner, Stewie, the madman, Irwin. Come on, bring him on. Well done to Scotland.
Without a doubt. I mean, they were tremendous, and you could see they were massively up for every single rink. I think overall, in the big scheme of things, it's now an opportunity for England to go back and have a look at things, because, as you know, when you keep winning year after year after year, there's very limited spaces available, because it's hard to drop somebody out of a winning team.
How can you change a winning team that's won it 7 times on the spin type of thing,
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see if there's any changes next year, and I would have definitely thought there'll be a league change for next year.
It might go down to 2. You might be marking a card, mate. How are you good at marking cards? You make a nice card?
If it goes to 2, mate, we'll just stream it.
Stream it. Well, speaking of streaming, my plan was to possibly nip up and stream the England-Scotland game, but time-wise, it never really got off the ground. Because I think it would just... I know we'll mention it with the interview with Annie later on, but I think covering one of them games for all 4s is hard to stream. It's just the atmosphere, and it would, I think, open a lot of people's eyes up.
For me, my thoughts when we were up there was this would make a tremendous highlight video where you could potentially do some streaming, just taking little pot shots of different... You're never going to stream a full game. You're never going to be able to give that. You're probably not going to be able to replicate sort of what the atmosphere of being a part of that's like, because I think it will be hard to come across on a streaming when you're not covering the whole green, so to speak. But I think to be able to... I saw one video where Stewie Anderson had played a big ball and the lads ran up, and atmosphere was great. And I just think a culmination of a video that you could potentially put on YouTube to show this was the highlights of the international series. And I think that's something that potentially needs to be looked at in the future, where you're not just focusing on one rink. You've possibly just got a couple of cameras dotted about that can cover different parts of the green and be able to knit it together at some point, even without the commentary.
No commentary? No commentary? There's people don't like our commentary, like our dulcet northern tones.
With a hairy bite as a balls, remember?
Yes, and when God made me, that's my best quote ever when you came out with that.
When
God made me, he gave me a voice like Morgan Freeman.
Well, on today's show, we've got Annie Dunham on the show, one of my little work colleagues, and we've been thinking about getting you on for a while, Annie, but Richie's kept saying, are we not getting anybody on with a personality anymore? But I said, hey, she's a nice girl. We'll get her on for a bit of a chat. So,
thank you. Thanks for that.
Hey, no worries. I mean, I didn't want to drop Richie in it or anything like that. We've got you on eventually anyway, so quite a good time to get you on as well, because I can see by the bags and the redness of your eyes that you've just come back from losing the top club final.
Yeah,
Didn't
thank
want
you.
to drop that one in straight here as well, but starting off well here, aren't we? We're doing all right. If anything else I can get you, but no, we'll move. Oh, there was the 2-ball yesterday as well, wasn't it? Or the day before?
Yeah, it's been going really well so far. Yeah,
Excellent.
Quarter-final and a final, semi-final Egham. Yeah, it's excellent. We're building up to winning one.
Well, to be fair, you've come on to the podcast that just normally features losers. It's me and Richie on for starters.
It's never going to be a good omen, was it?
But then, after you've been on the podcast, everybody seems to win everything. So this could be a good thing for you.
Thank you. That's the only reason I've come on, really.
Well, that's the reason I invited you on, to be honest with you, because I'm sick to death of seeing your miserable face every Monday morning when you've been beat. So we're hoping this might just turn your fortunes. So one of the obviously big reasons to get you on as well, I thought it would be quite nice to have a little chat about the international series, which is going to be taking up a lot of the podcast. I would have thought we'll be having a bit chat about that. Yours was a little bit more successful than the men's. Really what seemed to be a fantastic result when you came back from the death twice, I believe, against Scotland.
Yes.
Give us a lowdown. What was it all about?
So, first game against Wales was really tough fought battle. Again, we were kind of behind. Didn't really look like we were going to come back from it. Amazing team effort to win that game by 6, I think it was in the end.
Wasn't one of the rinks getting an absolute houting in that game?
They were, yeah. They were so unlucky. Every single end was going against them. No, in fairness, the Welsh girls played brilliantly and are really coming along, from what they've been like in previous years. Certainly from when I started getting into the team, Wales have come on so much, and amazing team camaraderie, and they really were out to get us on that day. But we really dug in, and it was just an amazing team effort. And I don't know, so different to the October series, just something different about it. But came back and managed to kind of get a victory from the jaws of defeat, really. Then going into the Ireland game, which is always tough. It's always a tough one. You'd like to think that we were going to win it, but you can never guarantee these things. And they are so tough to play against. A very different kind of pace of game, very different shot selections. It's quite hard to know what they're going to play sometimes. So managed to get a decent shot difference in that. And of course, Scotland were then in the same situation, but having a bit of a different game against Wales. So Scotland-Wales was not quite as close. So on paper, we're on the back foot. We're in Scotland, and they're current holders of the Cara Johns Trophy. So yeah, I went into that last game, and second ending, I think we were 20 shots down, which is not the best start to the game that you want. Clawed back, and I think ended up about 10 shots up, just over halfway through, which was a brilliant comeback from being 20 shots down. And then went 20 shots behind again. And, no team comes back from being 20 shots down twice, really. But we really dug in. Last few ends was phenomenal. I think when you look at the cumulative score, last end we won at 8-1, I think it was, or 8-0. So, and we won overall by 4 shots.
Richie's the stat, or you'll know what it was. I can't remember. I mean, touching back, I'm only winding you up earlier on, obviously, but I did send you a message after the Wales game, because I was looking at the scores coming through, and obviously you've got a really, really solid rig, and to see those scores coming through was like, blimey. Either something's going drastically wrong at your end, or they're playing really, really well. I did message her, and what you did, I always say, was a massive contribution to actually winning that game against Wales, because so many times you see people, maybe not at international level, but just capitulate and just fall to bits, haven't been that far down. But sometimes I think selfish is the wrong word to use, but lack of experience, they think they've got to go and chase more. They've got to go and chase the big shots and get the 5s and 6s back to get you back in the game. But you just end by end started to claw back a little bit of that score. And ultimately, by the time the game had finished, what you'd done in your game, for all you still lost by a margin, was potentially the difference between you winning the game and not winning the game. And sometimes you just got to accept the fact that it's
Yeah.
too good on the day.
Completely right. So, I mean, we were 26-3 down, but I think, we were we had a bit of a meeting at that stage in the game when we got the jack back, and we were saying, we weren't playing badly, and they were playing incredibly well. And we just weren't getting the results, but we were putting the balls in the areas. And as you know, it's a very difficult green to get out of trouble on. So if you're down and trying to attack and things, it was a tricky shot. But yeah, we just said, look, we're not bowling badly. We can do this. We're probably not going to win this now, but let's contribute. Let's get some shots on the board, and hopefully one of the other rinks will get ahead and they'll cancel us out. And that's kind of what happened. So we just knuckled down. We didn't drop our heads. We kept smiling. I think, really contributed. And to me, that was just as good as winning the rink, was to get back to, after being 26-3, I think we lost 29-15. So to do that in the second half was a great team effort. And of course, all the other rinks kind of were there. They were brilliant in terms of support. There's no blame culture in the team. Just, everyone was like, you did so well. So that was great.
I mean, without singling a rink out, because I can't remember, I was looking at the scores coming through, but was it Wendy King's rink who were banging in some big scores at that time when you were well down, and that must have been a big boost to the team as well, because big scores like that, I've no doubt there'll have been a lot of noise coming from the rink as well, and that must give the rest of the team a bit of a boost. And it just shows that, whilst one rink's down, there's always somebody else across the green that's potentially compensating and covering that deficit.
Absolutely.
So it's all about looking at the big board, not just looking at it. Of
course it is. And at this level, every rink is not going to win every game. It's just not going to happen. So it's how you deal with that, and really knuckling down as a team, which we did so well this year. It's probably the best team spirit that I've known the whole time I've been in there. So it was great.
I mean, looking at the team as a whole, it's very, very similar to what it's been over probably the last 5-6 years. And you have been quite dominant, apart from last year when Scotland won it. You have been, it's been cricket scores for 3 or 4 of the years from what I remember. I might be being unfair to one of the countries if I am saying that, but you just seem to be so dominant in the women's section that you were just wiping the floor with people on a regular basis. So do you think the other countries have now just stepped up and there's more experience coming into the countries to match what England can put out now?
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke about Wales just earlier, how they've massively come along, and Scotland again, they're competitive. It's always going to be nip and tuck now as to which one of us wins, really. But I think as well, maybe we've kind of stopped progressing as much as we can do, and that's then allowed other countries to potentially catch up. Not that we're doing anything wrong specifically, but I think it just showed this time just very small tweaks in the team and reading what needed to be changed. It wasn't massive things, but small things needed to be changed to just give us that edge again. And I think it's really important that we don't get too relaxed and assume that it's going to happen. And I know certainly the players don't assume that, but you can fall into that trap of just thinking, you need to turn up and then that's enough, and it isn't anymore. You have to go on there and show utmost respect to every opposition that we have in front of us.
I've always got the utmost respect for Ireland, because obviously they're only a small nation and they've only got a small selection of clubs to be able to pick from. Well, then you look at Wales and you look at Scotland, and the progression I see from them is that they've really got great core players through the team now, but they're also really core younger players. So obviously Amy for Wales and Kerry and Kelly for Wales, they're all formed at the top level. And then you've got the Scottish girls basically making names for themselves.
They've got a lot of younger players. You can see the average age amongst the teams has changed a lot since I got in. I think I've been in 9 or 10, maybe 11 years now. God, I'm getting old. But from when I first got in, you can really see that shift. And it's not necessarily that you should be going for younger players. What you need to do is going for the best team, whether that's the younger players or not. And, that's where we're really hitting the nail on the head, because we've got such a good balance of experience. People who've been there, they don't lose their heads when it gets close, because they know exactly how to manage those situations. But we've also got the kind of up and coming players who who are benefiting from this experience, and it's only going to improve our team going forward, but they're also able to deal with that. And it's certainly something that you can't teach. You can go down a green and, you know, bowl brilliantly, practice brilliantly, but you cannot teach bottle. And that's what we showed. I think that was, we didn't lose our heads. We really knuckled down, and when the chips were down, we turned up and we bowled some really big bowls, and you can't teach that.
No, definitely not. And it is very much a case of looking at that big board and just trusting in the fact that the quality's through the team, and that there's potentially 5s and 6s that could come up at any time and get you right back into the match as well, which obviously Scotland must have been absolutely gutted to lose on their own patch on the last end. But at the same time, I would imagine one thing I'd say about Abbeyview, I don't know what it was like for your Scotland game, but the spectators were great. There was a lot of people in there. So all you would expect, a lot of impartiality of being up in Scotland and against the Scottish. In the men's game, I probably didn't hear half of it because I was in a right sulk with myself. About that later on.
Can't imagine why.
The crowd were great. The atmosphere was amazing. And I think regardless of which way that game had gone, obviously there'd have been disappointment, but I think they just enjoyed watching great spectacle of bowls. And that's what it was. There was some fantastic stuff happening.
Yeah.
And I think that came across quite well on a few of the little handheld videos that were coming across from mobile phones that people were taking. And we've talked about a lot about, you know, with Richie about potentially covering an international series, but it's just so hard because it's quite claustrophobic, and they've got the stands and everybody's on top of each other, and covering 4s is not the easiest thing in the world anyway. It would just be nice to potentially get something that just captures the whole atmosphere and pressure, etc., that all of the players are under, and it's great. Like I say, you just can't beat it, and this is why, you know, the 24 player series for me still is the pinnacle of what we play.
And there'll be more from Annie later in the show. Right, mate. Probably one of the worst kept secrets in Two-Shot GR. The 6-ring format is RIP outdoors, mate. We've already spoke about it. We speak about it later on in the show. I just think it could have been accommodated somewhere along the lines. Changes everything, but play alongside. Have more events. Don't go to less. It's like Test cricket. They didn't get rid of Test cricket and introduced 2020 cricket. They put it alongside. They introduced the 100 just to try it. And it's been very successful. I just think that the crown jewels of outdoor bowls is your 6-ring format. My final word will be the 6-ring series. I'm sorry, but you've took the wrong turn there yourself.
Well, I'll not. I think the best thing for anybody to do is listen to my interview with Annie Dunham, and you'll certainly get the understanding of my opinion on that as well.
Right, mate. As the outdoor season's fastly approaching on us, there was some news from the Bowls England AGM that the qualifiers, now the top 27 counties with the most entries, get 2 qualifying places. I think it goes up about 62 entries, I think, per competition. I'm pleased it's gone back to that. One way to look at it is it's given more people an opportunity to taste what Leamington's like, and it doesn't make it more elitism. The other way to look at it, however, is like Sir Kent, who've got about 500 entries in the pairs, and they get the same number as the likes of the other counties that's got about 60 entries in the pairs. So swings and roundabouts, mate. I know you sort of like were more county finalists, gave something for the county final to play for.
Like I say, I mean, I'm all for getting it back to where it was. So but my opinion in the past, and saying nothing I haven't said before, is there has got to be an incentive in that county final to actually win the county final, because I think it, apart from winning a trophy, the incentive's already gone because, you know, the 2 qualifiers are there. Yeah. So I still stand by the fact, if you win your county, you go 2 rounds ahead of the runner-up. And it's seeded for all of the winners of your counties to be in the last, 32, however that would work. Yeah. And the rest who've lost to qualify have got to play at least a round or 2 to be able to get to that stage. And I think that's the big incentive to actually make county finals a bit more of a spectacle, because it's the difference between you being further into the championships or not.
Yeah, and I think that sort of like puts the onus back onto the counties, because there's a lot of counties who actually don't play the county finals until after Leamington.
For me, sums up, it makes a little bit of a farce of the national championships, because you're not playing your county finals to qualify. Your semi-finals become the county finals.
Yeah.
That's where I'm touching on with regards to, there's no incentive now to actually get to that county final, because you've already done what you want to do before you even get there.
Yeah, yeah.
You should go down there and everybody should be able to see in that draw, or he's done well to win his county title, so I'm going to have a right battle on here. Whereas at the minute, you could be stuck in a prelim and you've just won your county title. It just doesn't tally right.
You were sort of like walking out the gates with your balls, and the people that you beat in the county finals just walking the other way in.
Exactly that. Exactly. And that for me is where it's wrong.
Yeah, I do quite agree with that, mate. I do.
People will always argue that you should still not be able to win a national title by losing in a competition, which you effectively do. But there's still got to be, if that's the way it's going to be, which I think is a good thing, because as you said, gives more people the opportunity. But you need to award those who've actually gone on and won the county title.
Yeah, I quite agree, mate. I quite agree. There's one red flag that did catch my eye line. It's more with the likes of the ladies under 25s, where I think there was about 8 counties who haven't got an entry in the ladies under 25s. I think that's got to be a concern going forward for the women's game, mate.
It is. It's a massive concern, but reverts back to Ladies' Night podcast, and it reverts back to having chats with Catherine Rednall and Lorraine Kohler. We've talked about this so many times, but yet there still doesn't seem to be much of a change in the fact that the women still want to play the games during the week when kids are at school, or women are at work, or they're looking after the kids. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Make the game more accessible for younger women to play.
Yeah.
Because we see there's a stack of younger women play it. So there's got to be an attraction there for women out there to actually come and play the sport, but there's literally no attraction whatsoever if you've got to take a day's holiday or get babysitters to go and play a game of balls during the day. It's rubbish, total rubbish.
Yeah. And the sun will come out tomorrow as we return to our interview with Annie.
We obviously know there's a little bit of disagreement about that in certain quarters because things have changed on the outdoor scene, but I just disagree. I personally, we've talked about it in the podcast before, and you just cannot beat the fact that after 126 ends in a 24-person series, it could potentially come down to that one last ball. How much has happened across that 4 hours to get to that point where it's literally down to the last ball? I mean, you just can't buy that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. If we could have bottled that feeling that we had, and either way, if we'd have lost it or won, I mean, there's nothing sweeter than winning a game like that. But to just bottle the whole atmosphere, as you say, the spectators were fantastic. It was just a complete privilege to play in such an amazing game, whichever way it would have gone. But if you could sell that, then you would have no problems getting people play the sport, would you?
As daft as it sounds, you want to win a title that way than running away by 30 shots, because the last 2-3 ends just become a bit of a damn squib, and it's like shaky hands, well done, great stuff, everybody, and then you walk off the green and you get presented and that's it. But there just seems to be something when it goes down to that critical last ball of the whole championship, and it's all on that, and then everybody, whoever it is that wins, runs onto the green and you're jumping all over, and the adrenaline levels just stay with it for another half an hour. It's massive, and it's no different to winning a game by 30 shots because you've won the title, but it is a massive difference because there's just no better way. And anybody who hasn't experienced it, either as a spectator or a player, then all I can say is just you want to hope that you get to something like that, because it's just the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It's just
absolutely that's what we play the sport for, isn't it? You don't necessarily get those experiences very often, but when you do, they stay with you, and that's kind of why you keep going back for more. Certainly why I do.
Totally. And I think because there's 6 rinks on there, I think that's what makes it exciting as well, because it can just literally, you've just said it yourself, you went 20 shots down against Scotland, all of a sudden you're back in the match. And then all of a sudden you're 20 shots back down again, because there can just be an end where you drop a 3, 4, 2, 3, whatever. And it's in a small context of a game, a 3 shot on one rink isn't too much. But across, if you did it on 6 rinks, there's 18 shots on average that you're just losing in one spell. And for me, that for me is what makes it as exciting and as great a spectacle as what it is. And it's, I hope, really pray that it continues indoors. I'm hoping there's no thoughts in the future, and appreciate the fact that costings are starting to become a big thing. But I just think it will be a huge detriment if we lost it in the indoor game as well.
And what an amazing thing to aspire to. Certainly for me, getting into that ladies team as a youngster was really the pinnacle for me, and to be able to say, I've skipped at that level, I couldn't have dreamed of of it as a youngster, but it really is something that keeps me going back for more. It's one of the reasons why I keep playing. I've got a young family, I've got a lot of other commitments, but just those experiences and that camaraderie with the rest of the ladies, just that's what it's all about.
Well, the thing is as well, Annie, and we've touched on it again during our conversation, your Islands and your Wales and even potentially Scotland would never have caught up to the standard you were playing at as a team if you didn't have that opportunity of 24 players in a team to do that. As soon as you start reducing that by half, you're never ever going to get the games might be tighter because you're getting the elite of what's happening playing against each other in a smaller format, but you're never ever going to get the sort of bread and butter bowlers who basically need that experience to be able to step up to the next level and be a part of a series like that. I mean, I don't know if there was any new caps in the England team this year, and I'm sure there'll have potentially been new caps in the Scotland team this year, and for totally opposite reasons. And a New England player would just say, I want more of this. What an unbelievable weekend that was to get to that point. And then you're going to have potentially new caps in the Scotland team saying, what have I done wrong? What do I need to improve? And what do I need to get to so that I'm never going to go through what we've just been through as a losing team? And I'm sure Wales and Ireland are exactly the same. Every single year will be targeted on how do we make that next step? How do we progress to get to the level of what England have been performing to over the last X amount of years? And it's starting to show. For me, it looked like quite a balanced series. And unfortunately, like I say, as we've said about Ireland, they're at a little bit of a loss at nothing because they haven't got the strength and depth that the other countries have got.
I understand the premise of having a series with reduced numbers so that, Ireland, they have got some absolutely fantastic players and they certainly are able to compete when you're in that smaller team format, but it's having those stepping stones, isn't it? And I think outdoors historically you've had all those stepping stones. You've had that series where you've got the 24, so you can see those players and it's something for people to aim for and then get looked at to then progress further. And then you've got the elite squad things, your Europeans, your World Championships, and then ultimately Commonwealth Games. And it's great in the past that we've had that chance. I think indoors, what I always think is a little bit sad is that got that 24-man thing, which is brilliant, but then there's not anything after that. I think what I'd love to see is something else. And then maybe, your islands and can compete as well because they're still totally capable of doing that. But there's just it's almost like an imbalance now because you're not going to have the 24-man one outdoors where you've got the other things, and then indoors you've got the 24-man format but then not the other things. So could we put it all together? That would be amazing.
And I think indoors wise, obviously they did have the test series where there was like the 6-player test series indoors, and that was televised, which was great again, but obviously
fantastic. And a great format as well.
It was, and unfortunately, I think Coston's caught up with that type of thing because, again, what he always says, why are we not covering bowls? But what they also need to understand is that bowls organisations do not get paid to put stuff on the telly. They've got to actually pay the TVs companies and the streaming companies to actually do that. So that's where that did. But, hopefully that will come back again in the future and promote, that maybe that test format again, which will be great. It's just, like I say, I just can't grasp. We see so many get-togethers on weekends where there's nations competing against each other. We saw a lot of it in the run-up to the Commonwealth Games. Yeah. So if they're getting all of that test games in, why do you need something else which replaces the 24-person series, which then gives 50% of that team that opportunity to say, this is the level I need to get to be able to compete with these guys, your elite squads. And that's what's lost. And that's, for me, is just, I just really think it's a detriment, and I really think it's a long-term will do more damage than good for the sport as far as international bowls is concerned. And I'll more than happy to turn around and say I've refused my trial this year on that basis because I don't agree with it. And that's the reason I've given. It's not a secret. Don't mind saying it. It's nothing to do with, I'm not going to put myself in any situation with regards to the support that we've got to give in my job role, as you well know. We're there to support. But I've got an opinion just like any other player. And my opinion as a player is don't like the new format, and I'm not prepared to play in it because I just don't agree with it. I'm not going to just do it for the simple fact that I want to have an England shirt on. For all it's the pinnacle, and I'm proud to do it. If I don't agree with something, then I've got to stand by my own sort of feelings, and that's why I've pulled out. I don't sort of disregard anybody who isn't supporting that and isn't thinking to themselves, should we be doing the same thing to support it? Because as we've talked about loads of times, there is not enough in the sport that gives back to be able to justify turning around and saying, well, I'll support that, because you've got to take what you get. And we've had this discussion loads of times.
We have. And I mean, what I'll find really interesting is how they split the strength as well, because of course it's going to be 2 10-man teams, and it'll be interesting to see, are they going to essentially put kind of an A team in there and then what they feel is maybe a weaker B team, or are they going to split the strength, and how is that all going to work? And as well, how are they going to select positions and stuff? Because you've got players who might not necessarily be singles players. Are they going to be trying everyone at singles? Are they going to trying to select people in roles that they think are going to work? I don't know. It will be really interesting to see how that pans out, I think.
It'll certainly be interesting over the next year or two just to see where it actually goes to, because there was a lot of momentum with regards to a lot of people saying we can't lose this 24-player series, but then ultimately, as is always the case, it all seems to have dwindled and we are where we are. So in 2 years' time, are we going to see the benefits? And if we do, great. I'll be the first to hold my hands up and say, great choice. If it's taken things forward and it's benefited people, then great. I'll be the one who says, well, I was wrong with my opinion. But I stand by the fact at the moment, I just don't see it as being a good thing.
Certainly advocates for not having things the same as they've always been just because.
Oh, yeah.
We're definitely advocates for change and progressing the sport. That's what our job is, isn't it, ultimately?
It is.
And we don't shy away from telling clubs, telling counties that we need to change things, and that is the same at international level. If that needs to change, then we're for it. It's just kind of hard to see at the moment how it will fit in and how it won't be detrimental, but time will tell.
And myself and Richie talk about it all the time. I'm a massive advocate, and we always say change is a dirty word, and Richie said it loads and loads of times before. Well, change is only a dirty word if it's something that isn't working. And the 24-player series, it isn't as if it hasn't worked. It's not as if it hasn't bled through your Sam Tolchards and your Louis and the times before that, all your Stuart Aries and your Jordan Rendalls all had to come through that. And they won't have been at the top of the game when your John Bells and your Tony Alcox and everything. But, those players will have looked at those guys and went, this is what I've got to do to get there. But if the opportunities aren't there to be able to do that, and you're classed as a B team in a 10-man squad or whatever it is, and then you've got your elite players that potentially you're going to be very, very unlucky if they lose that spot within those. Then,
and just how you're not expecting all of the elite squad players to lose their places, because they're quality players and they deserve their places there. But as maybe someone who's trying to break into that, if you're not getting the chance to play with those elite squad players in combinations, it's hard to see how you're ever going to fit into that. And certainly kind of in the position I'm in, where I'm not an up and coming player really anymore. I'm not young enough for that, but I'm not an elite squad player either. I guess for me, I'm always thinking, well, am I being looked at in a combination that's likely to be picked? And sometimes you don't see that so well, because if the elite squad players are in a different team and you're never going to be in that combination, how are you ever going to break into it? I'm sure that there's a plan that we don't know about, and it might all work out. And as you say, we'll definitely hold our hands up and say, great, if it does progress, don't we? We just don't want to lose our sport.
And that's why I've always said I'll never have a go at something until obviously the proof's in the pudding. And I think we said back in the day when all of this whole petition came out, I turned around on one of the podcasts and says there might be a bigger picture. They might be doing these things to be able to fit in and give more people opportunities to play in some of the European championships or whatever it is. And if that's the case, then like I say, great. But my opinion as it is at the moment, I haven't seen that, and it doesn't seem to be materialising in any way, and it just seems to be purely focused on getting formats right for the Commonwealth Games, and that is for the few. That's not for the more, unfortunately, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But time will tell, and like I say, I'll be the first to hold my hands up in a year or two if it works out to be the best option going forward. But, we shall see. But I know you're a little bit restricted on time, Annie, so we will let you jump off and just always think to yourself, you're a lot older than me. You've got the over 50s triples potentially coming up soon. So you've got chances of national titles at a senior level. So, best of luck with that.
I just humour him. These old men, they need something, don't they?
Just pat them on the head when you see him. Just pat them on the head.
Times that I've beat him in our team meeting roll-ups and the darts, you took that pretty hard, didn't you?
The darts was an absolute disgrace, to be honest with you. I try to forget about that on a daily basis. So yeah.
Didn't mention table tennis. If you've seen the table tennis clip against Sammy, didn't mention table tennis. Leave it. Yeah.
Whatever.
He didn't mention it, but next time I see him in person, I will be making sure I see this video.
I'll just go on at the wrong guy's page. He's plastered it all over for the world to see. Don't worry about it.
Bitter interested.
Well, thanks so much, Annie. It's been lovely having you on. Like I say, I work with you every week, and it's had that connection, and we've worked together for a long time, and it's great to have you actually on here to talk about the series and get your input on a few things. So thanks so much.
Pleasure, and thank you for finally inviting me on. I've only been waiting for however many years. So
you're supposed to be coming on Ladies' Night, weren't you, Dave?
Yeah, you were, but you didn't.
But Davey blocked you.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I got wrong.
Well, like I said, Richie's been putting the block on it for a while because he says we needed somebody with personality. So we were just really, really struggling this week, so we couldn't think of anybody else to get. So
it's because the national finals are on.
That's it. I mean, what we did was we had a list of about 10 women, and we looked at the ones who would probably lose, and you were top of the list. So we knew you'd be played. You're a star, Annie. Thanks so much. And
no problem. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Annie. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Ta-ra.
Bye.
Right, mate, there we go. Show 48 over and done with. Another good one. Nice to have a chat with Annie Dunham. Crossed really well. It was interesting to get the background of the Ladies International Series. And, of course, you've had your Men's International Series, which we'll not mention anymore because we'll move along. Do have some live streaming coming up Easter weekend. We're going to do the Open Singles Circuit coming from Hartlepool. That'll be our first crack at the Open Singles. So thanks to the AIBA for letting us do that. And on the Monday, it's the Hartlepool Masters pairs, the club's 50th year as well, isn't it, Hartlepool?
Yeah, well, it's the 50th running of the Masters competition. It's the 50th year, and it's a really good one for us to cover as well. I don't know, there'll be a lot of people from down south who don't know about the Hartlepool Masters, but there's been some.
Well, it's been some cracking fields made over the times.
Fields, great winners, Alcocks and Greenslades, Johnny Rosses, Davy Axon and Mark Wyatt from Wales. They used to travel across. A lot of players, travel across a good distance, and it's always been a really, really strong competition. So it'd be nice to actually showcase that.
Yeah, and we're streaming that on Bank Holiday Monday, covering the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final. So we're looking forward to fetch you something different than singles.
I mean, the bonus for that last day as well is that generally get your top notchers qualifying through that last day because they've had to go through 5 games to actually get to the last day on the Monday. So they play Saturday, Sunday. I think it's 5 or 6 games. I can't remember. It takes some good wins to actually make the final stages. So yeah, it should be good to cover on the Monday. And all I'm going to say is I hope I'm not commentating with you.
Aye. Aye, then you'll be on the green. Right, folks, we hope you enjoyed it. As ever, if you have any comments about the podcast, feel free to put them. We've got broad shoulders, taking on the chin, all good and all bad. And as we are approaching to our 50th show, we wish you bon voyage. And till the next time, thank you. Bit of French there, bit of French. Bon voyage.
Monge two, Davy, Monge two.
Monge two, mon ami. It was like when I was commentating for that Champions. I was supposed to say the Napoleonic Wars come out as the Neapolitan Wars. The great ice cream wars of the 70s.
You'll have been eating ice cream at the time, you.
Right, cheers, mate.
Okie dokie, mate.
Catch you later. Ta-ra.
Thank you for listening and hope you've enjoyed the show.
This has been a Dodgy production.